I oppose this Henny Youngman. As the mother says to her son, get out of bed and go to work. He says, I don't want to go to work. She says, you get out of bed and go to work. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I won't go to work. Why won't you go to work? The secretary don't like me, the boys around, the janitor don't like me, nobody likes me. He says, you're 47 years old, you're mayor of New York, you go to work. Well, let me Mr. Nixon. He says, Mr. Nixon, how do you sleep with all these problems? He says, I sleep like a baby. You sleep like a baby? I cry a little, I went to bed a little, I wake up a little. There's a guy bragging about his new hearing aid. He said, this is the best hearing aid I've ever had, $1,500. His friend said, what kind is it? He said, 4:30. Hope you're getting a few laughs out of this. Tune in tomorrow. I make it funnier. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. Fellow says to me, Doctor, I'm having trouble with my love life at home. What do you suggest? He says, look, take off 20 pounds, run 10 miles a day. Fellow calls him 2 weeks later. He said, Doc, I took off the 20 pounds. I've been running 10 miles a day. He said, well, how's your love life? I don't know. I'm 140 miles away. So the guy meets the doctor. He said, Doctor, every time I sneeze, I feel like going out with a girl. He said, what do you take me? He says, pepper. There's a little fellow has a jewelry store, but he stutters. The man rushes in. He says, take this watch. Put a new band on. Clean the glass. I'll be back in a half hour. And slams the door. The jeweler looks up and says, come in. Little lady walks into a record store. She says, do you have a low dolly? The man says, what speed? She says, hello, dolly. Hello, dolly. How much will you pay me not to play? Tune in tomorrow. I make it funnier. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. Says a man dies in a town, and nobody wants to say a good word for him at his funeral, not even the local rabbi. So they call a rabbi in the next town. They said, will you say a few good words about this man? He said, I didn't like him either, but I'll say a few good words. He says his brother was worse. There's a honeymoon couple check into the Watergate Hotel in Washington. The bride is very nervous. She says, what's the matter, darling? She says, maybe the place is still being bugged. He looks behind the curtains, looks behind the piano, picks up the carpet. Aha! There's a disc with 4 screws. He takes out the disc and the 4 screws, puts them in his pocket. Comes down the next morning, he says, Mr. Kelly, how was the room? Was everything all right last night? He said, beautiful. He said, did you like the honeymoon dinner we sent you free? Beautiful. He says, how was the service? He said, the service was perfect. Why are you asking me all these questions? He says, a couple below you complained the chandelier fell on them. Folks, I gotta go now. If I stay out of my hotel room more than an hour, they rent it. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. The guy goes to his doctor. He swallowed a ping pong ball. So the doctor cut him in 4 places, on top, on the side, in the middle, and down below. The fellow says to the doctor, what's the idea? He said, that's the way the ball bounces. The guy goes to his doctor. He says, Doctor, I have a ringing in my ear. What'll I do? He said, don't answer. He have a wonderful doctor. he gave a man 6 months to live. He couldn't pay his bill. He gave him another 6 months. The guy got in a small cab. He says, where to? He says, to a large cab. I got in the cab the other day myself. The guy says, get out. He says, what's the idea? He says, I don't like anybody behind me when I'm driving. The drunk is into a taxi. He says, take me to the Waldorf Astoria. He says, you're at the Waldorf Astoria. He says, next time, don't drive so fast. Hold on, man walks in the bank. He says, give me all your cash. He says, take the books to him, 10,000 short. Hope you're getting a few laughs out of this. Tune in tomorrow. I make it funnier. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. I got a brother who wants to be an actor. They asked him to play the part of a terrorist. They sent him to blow up a car. He burned his lips on the exhaust pipe. The fellow lives with his mother and his brother, and inside comes a little pussycat. And he falls in love with the pussycat. The pussycat follows him all over. He plays with the pussycat. He has a ball with the pussycat. Gets to love the cat. He wins a free trip to Europe. He's away 2 weeks. He calls his brother. He says, brother, how's my little pussycat? He says, your pussycat died. He said, why did you have to tell it to me that way for? You could have told me the pussycat was on the roof. He broke his leg. I would have gotten used to it a little easier. He says, you're right, brother, forgive me. He says, okay, I forgive you. By the way, how's Mom? He says, she's on the roof. How much will you pay me not to play? Folks, I gotta go now. If I stay out of my hotel room more than an hour, they rent it. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. There's a grandmother on the beach. She's supposed to mind her little grandson. She turns away. All of a sudden, he's washed out into the waves. She calls the lifeguards. She calls everybody. She calls the Coast Guard. They finally get out there. They bring the kid in. They pump him out for an hour. The kid starts to breathe. The grandmother says he had a hat. There's a guy in the desert. He's looking for water. All of a sudden, a man comes along on a camel. He said, water, water. He says, all I do is sell ties, 2 for $5. He can't sell him the ties. He said, look, my brother has a plush restaurant up the street. Go up there. He got water. So the man crawls 3 blocks, knocks on the door. A man comes out. He says, water, water. He said, yeah, water, but you can't come in without a tie. 2 fellows talking. One says, what do you think of the politicians in Washington? He said, you ought to get rid of the whole bunch of them and get a whole new bunch of guys in an office. He said, that's easy for you to say. You're getting a few laughs out of this. Tune in tomorrow. I make it funnier. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. Guy knocks on the lady's door. Lady, I'm hungry. Can I have something to eat? She says, well, you eat yesterday's soup? He says, yeah. She says, come back tomorrow. I got a doctor. I don't want to say he's bad, but he once treated a patient for varicose veins for 6 months. Then they found out the guy had a leaky fountain pen. Guy walks to a psychiatrist. He says, doctor, I keep forgetting everything. He says, the first thing you do is pay me in advance. Doctor calls a woman. Says, Mrs. Hiss, your check came back. She said, yes, so did my arthritis. 2 deaf and dumb fellows were arguing in their sign language. One starts to swear. The other one says, you ought to wash out your hands. I got a guy who just made a fortune. He bought 1,000 garbage trucks. He's selling to people as condominiums with escalators. I flew to California, got the flu, and flew back to New York again. Hopefully you're getting a few laughs out of this. Tune in tomorrow. I make it funnier. Hiya, folks. This is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. I was on the television this summer. They asked me how much I wanted to work with Joey Heatherton. I said, I want $50,000. They called back. They said, how about $20,000? I said, I'll pay it. It was wonderful working with Joey Heatherton. I had one dressing room, and she had the other dressing room right next to mine. And there was a little hole in the wall. I let her look. There's a guy playing golf. He drops dead from a heart attack. Who's going to tell a wife? The guy says, I will. He calls up. He says, Mrs. Cohn, your husband Sam lost $500 playing cards today at the country club. She says he should drop dead. He says he did. Now the Irishman, the poor Irishman drops dead from a heart attack. Who's going to tell a wife? The guy says, I will. Goes to the house, knocks on the door. A woman comes out. He says, is this the widow Ryan? She says, I'm not the widow Ryan. He said, wait till you see what they're dragging in the back door. All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Fellas, do you know what it means to come home at night to a woman who'll give you a little love, a little affection, a little tenderness? It means you're in the wrong house. That's what it means. Say, a man 75 years old is reading in his hotel room when he hears a knock on the door and a beautiful girl says, I'm sorry, I must be in the wrong room. He says, you got the right room, but you're 40 years too late. Folks, statistics show us that every 4 seconds, a woman gives birth to a baby. Our problem is to find this woman and stop her. All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Hi, folks, this is Henny Youngman. I was in a place once where they caught the bartender stealing. He took $1, put half $1 in his pocket, half $1 in the cash register. He took another $1, same thing. Half $1 in his pocket, half $1 in the cash register. The third one, he keeps the whole $1. The boss walks over, he says, what's the matter, aren't we partners anymore? A truck driver pulls into a diner, orders a hamburger. All of a sudden, 2 hippies come in and sit down on each side of him. The hamburger arrives. One hippie grabs one half the hamburger, the other hippie grabs the other. The truck driver doesn't say anything. Gets up, pays his check, and walks out. One of the hippies says to the waitress, not much of a man, is he? And she says he's not much of a truck driver either. He's just backed over your 2 motorcycles. How much will you pay me not to play? All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Hi, folks, this is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. I got 3 brother-in-laws. One brother-in-law genius. When we had the garbage strike in New York, you know, I got rid of his garbage. He gift-wrapped it, left it in the car, they stole it. My second brother-in-law, this guy's really an idiot. We had a blackout in New York. He was stuck in an escalator for 4 hours. I said, why didn't you walk down? He says, I was on my way up. I got a brother, Lester. I wish he would learn to trade so he'd know what kind of work he's out of. Last year, he was a lifeguard in a car wash. What do you think he did this year? Open up a tall man shop in Tokyo. He wants to be an importer. He brought back 1,000 Japanese cameras. They all go crick. As a guy meets another guy, he says, look, I want to sell my car. He says, how many miles you got on it? 10,000 miles. He said, push the speedometer back to 3,000 miles. Meets him the next day. He says, "You sell a car?" "I'm not going to sell a car with only 3,000 miles on it." "Folks, I got to go now. If I stay out of my hotel room more than an hour, they rent it." Hi, folks, this is Henny Youngman. Picture this, a movie house. In the middle of the theater, a guy laid out on 5 seats on his back. The usher comes down. He says, "Mister, you'll have to get out of there. We need the seats." He goes, to the usher. Now the manager comes down. He says, "Mister, we have a line of people outside. We need those seats. You're entitled to 1 seat." He goes, Now the cop comes down. He says, "Out." He goes, to the cop. The cop says, "All right, wise guy, where you from?" He says, "The balcony." My wife avoided being bitten by a shark. She opened her mouth first. There's a little kid been dumb for 6 years, hasn't said one word for 6 years. All of a sudden one morning he says, "This coffee is bad. This coffee is lousy." His parents are amazed. They said, 6 years we've been waiting for you to talk. Why didn't you talk before? He says, "Up till now the coffee was good." All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Hi, folks, this is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. Say, I have a thing now called Bachelors Anonymous. If you feel like getting married, you call this number. They send over a woman in an old house coat. She's got curlers in her hair, no makeup. She makes you burnt toast, and she nags you for about 20 minutes. Folks, I have a little property in Las Vegas. Caesar's Palace has my luggage. Say, the fellow tries to impress his girlfriend. They're walking down Fifth Avenue. She said, "Darling, look at that beautiful mink coat. I'd love to have it." He produces a brick from his pocket, throws it through the window. He takes the coat and gives it to the girl. They keep walking. "Darling, I'd love to have that jewelry to go with the coat." Takes out another brick, throws it through the window, gives the girl the jewelry. They get to another store. She says, "Darling, I'd love to have those shoes to go with my coat and necklace." He says, "What do you think? I'm made out of bricks." All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Hi, folks, this is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. There's a guy sees his wife going into a movie with another man. His friend says, "Why didn't you follow me?" He says, "I saw the picture." As a guy leaves his family, hears about transcendental meditation. Leaves his business, leaves his family, climbs the mountain, gets to the top of Tibet. He sees there the Maharishi, and the Maharishi is eating an orange and spitting pits out. He says, "Tell me, Maharishi, what is life all about?" He says, "Life is like an orange." He said, "You mean to tell me I left my home, I left my family, I climbed the mountain here, I got up here, you tell me life is like an orange?" He says, "Life isn't like an orange." As a girl falls overboard on the ship, the father says, "I'll give half my fortune to save her." The fellow jumps in, saves the girl. The father says, "I'll keep my promise. Here's half my fortune." The guy says, "I don't want the money. All I want to know is who pushed me." All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Hi, folks, this is Henny Youngman for Dial a Joke. A lot of people ask, do I know anything about music? I know a lot about music. Did you know that Beethoven was a young man that all of a sudden he couldn't write anymore? He just couldn't write anymore. It depressed him. He was getting drunk. He looked like a bum, and his wife threatened to leave him. He says to her, don't leave me, I love you, I love you. You're my right arm, I love you, I love you." She said, "You love me." Ha, 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 ha. The salesman was trying to sell a bachelor a new car and pointing to the dashboard, he said, "Look, see this panel? All buttons. You press the red one, and a redhead gets in the car with you. If you press the black button, a brunette gets into the car with you. If you press this yellow button, a beautiful blonde gets in the car." The bachelor said, "Gee, that's great." The salesman said, "Well, do you want the car?" And the bachelor said, "No, just sell me the buttons." All right, folks, don't forget, tune in tomorrow. Folks, did you know that they're remodeling St. Patrick's Cathedral? They're putting in drive-in confessionals. It's called Toot and Tell. What do you call a Jewish baby who's nice circumcised? A girl.